what we do is we find mosques or learning centers that are funded by the Muslim Brotherhood. We're against Islamic terror, and these front groups for Islamic terror, as the Muslim Brotherhood is. There's a bill in the Senate, a bill in the House to designate them as a terrorist organization, and our political leaders had better get with it and make sure they pass those bills so we can nip this in the bud before it gets out of hand. We're using the Second Amendment right, which is the right to bear arms, to back up our First Amendment rights. If somebody threatens us with violence, we have the ability to protect ourselves.
We mostly stand in opposition to CARE and groups like that, but there are, of course, other Islamic groups that are a problem, and we address them as well. Nation of Islam is one of them. They're more of an American domestic terrorist group than anything, and they do follow the religion, Islam. Slightly different than the Arab version of Islam, but nonetheless, it's the same result.
The man you just saw in the video is part of a group called the Bureau of American Islamic Relations, also known as BEAR. And this past weekend, they turned up at a Nation of Islam mosque in Dallas to protest radical Islam. But they were confronted by hundreds of activists from the new Black Panther Party, and they were told by the police to leave for their own safety. Joining me now to weigh in on this is Ryan Mauro, national security analyst for the Clarion Project, and Oz Sultan. He is a conservative Muslim and a counterterrorism consultant. Guys, I want you to watch this. Play.
We're going to stand up and fight back. If they want to fight like they say they do, then they just need to understand that they are going to have opposition now. They've never had opposition before, but they do now.
Tell Bear they're not welcome in Dallas, they're not welcome in Houston, they're not welcome in Texas, they're not welcome in Louisiana, they're not welcome anywhere. And anywhere we find out they're coming, we'll be there.
Oz, let me start with you. What do you know about the group called BEAR?
BEAR is almost like a CARE parody project. Listen, it's a bunch of guys.
Explain CARE.
CARE is the Council on the Council on American Islamic Relations. Not to be confused with Linda's group. But they basically are sort of the mouthpiece for whenever anything happens to Muslims in America, simply because there really isn't a lot of PR out there to begin with. BEAR had sort of positioned themselves as kind of a mockery of CARE. At the same point in time is highlighting their ire with just Muslims existing.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to turn to you, Ryan. You tell me what's your take on BEAR versus CARE.
I think this whole thing is a victory for the extremists, the very people that BEAR is saying that they are protesting. This is good for the Islamic extremists, having this contrast where it's black versus white, so it's a racial issue, and then the Black Panther can come in and say to Muslims, hey, you need us to protect you from these people showing up in camouflage to protest your mosque. This isn't the way to go about it, I don't think.
Okay, so let's all agree with that, okay? Mm-hmm. And let's step back. You're going to have to explain something to me. I put this on my Facebook. I like to think of myself as a pretty intelligent guy. Mm-hmm. But I cannot get my hands around the Islamic religion. I cannot, I just can't do it. We had a guy on here not long ago, Ryan, I think you were one of the guests with him. He said he used to be a Muslim, mm-hmm. And then he said as he got older, he says, I don't like the tail end of the Quran.
See,
he went to Christianity.
The challenge I think you have is Islam is a relatively simple religion that can be practiced a ton of different ways. You've got two different sort of schisms, one that could be sort of alluded to as Catholicism and Protestantism with the Sunnis and the Shias, but then you have different schools of thought underneath. So, I mean, I'm working on a project called Islam This Week, which we're going to be launching in a few weeks, just to kind of start explaining this stuff, because there are no sound bites. There isn't really good understanding of this stuff that breaks it down. The biggest problem I think we have in America in relation to this is that you've got 0.001% of American terrorist attacks being committed by folks who are terrorists or radicals. And then of the entire Muslim population globally, you've got 0.0001% that are terrorists or radicals. Muslim people themselves don't necessarily know how to engage with this stuff. They don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, but Ryan will tell you, Ryan, that 0.1 is equate to how many people?
Well, we shouldn't downplay the threat. We should definitely confront anti-Muslim stereotypes, but don't downplay the threat. If you look at a video that we made with a Muslim feminist named Raheel Raza. It's called By the Numbers. And it went through all the stats of extremist beliefs in the Muslim world. Trust me, much bigger than 1%. So we have a big threat in our hands. But it is true that there are Muslims that are helping us fight against the Islamic extremists. About 75% of the time when we arrest one of these guys trying to go to Iraq or Syria, it's because of an informant who is most probably a Muslim.
You know, I only got a minute left, so I want to give 20 seconds to each one of you guys. It comes down to me. I mean, I love all people, but you know, there are people who are following that Quran who believe that my head is better chopped off. And I just don't know how it is that we can protect Americans from that sort of thing, especially if Muslims don't stand up and start condemning what's going on.
We just had 70,000 imams condemn terrorism, in addition to which I think the bigger issue we have is education, and it's on both sides. If you look at Pakistan and India, just amongst the Muslim population, you're talking about almost 500 million people who can't read their name. Okay, so one of the challenges that you have is it's not a madrasa issue, it's an education issue, and it's an education issue there, and it's also an education issue here of what Islam actually is.
I'm with you 100%. Ryan, I'm short on time, man. That's how fast this is. You know, every time we have a conversation about this stuff, it feels like I'm flying, you know, we're throwing a clock out the window and watch time fly. Thanks, guys. Definitely have you back. All right, what do you think? Send me an email at dmlreport@newsmax.com.